To say that I'm humbled to be here is an understatement. A good friend of mine called me when the picture went up on the billboard and says, "Why are you coming?" I said, "I don't know." But thank you. And it's very humbling to be here and share my story of faith, family, and football. And I didn't come up with this phrase myself. A guy named Jack Childress, ACC football official, multiple national championship referee, supervisor in the South Atlantic and in the Southern Conference. He came up with that, and he stuck with that priority. You've called him, asked him about an assignment. He always say faith, family, and football. So thank you, Jack, for that. So where's Dave? Who's changing my slides up there? Okay, all right, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Well, it started here with my dad. Daddy was a three-sport letterman at Duke back in the 40s, football, baseball, and basketball. Met my mom in Durham and found out today that Daddy grew up just down from Tom Dixon up in Pennsylvania. Daddy used to say the only thing good about the North was southbound roads, so I know, Tom, you're glad to be in the South as well. But anyway, it started with these two guys here, and this is my mom's senior picture from 1952. So you can go ahead and go to the next slide, please. And this is a picture of their wedding day. Daddy's been gone now for 21, 22 years. But he so loved his wife, so much loved his wife. And he taught so much in us about faith and about family and a whole lot about football. And we'll share that as we go through. So you can go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So I was born November 6, 1959 in Monroe, Georgia. I'm the son of late Harry W. Renz Jr. and my mom, Barbara. I have three brothers, David, Ken, and Ken's back in the back. Ken, thank you so much for coming today. I appreciate it. Now, some will tell you that this is my dad, but he's really not. He's just my older brother. I think Marlo calls him my dad. But I think I was baptized in the first Christian church in Monroe, Georgia, and don't remember that. I was a kid and I got baptized, but that was my first indoctrination into Christianity. And people know this, but Daddy, I was going through some of his stuff this week, and he had for his church, they gave out pens. He went 9 years straight and never missed a Sunday of church. 9 years straight, and this is a teenager, and this is people walking to church in the snow, but he was always faithful to his church. Next slide, please. You'll get a kick out of this right here. It said, this is a typical Sunday, getting dressed and going to church. Now, I'm the third one there, and you know you're pretty skinny when your knees are the biggest part of your legs. My brothers had a heyday with me. I was abused quite often, but we always stuck with family. Next slide, please. This is another picture. There you go. Another going to church and everything. So we did clean up nice every once in a while, but family was very, very important to my parents and always sticking together. Next slide, please. And this is it's church picnic, where we used to have church picnics. I think probably once a month there was a church picnic, and it was always something that we didn't miss. And then church became just a way of life for us. There was not an option in our family on Sunday morning. You were going to church. It's just the way we lived. Next slide, please. And Daddy got really involved in Monroe, Georgia. Having been playing football at Duke, he got involved in Monroe immediately. He was chair of the booster club, and this was a picture the guy took. And I always laugh at Greg on the far right of the picture there with the sign upside down. But Daddy was always involved in taking care of others, especially in football. Next slide, please. So this is one of our family pictures at First United Methodist Church. And this is where I was confirmed. And so it's kind of a second step of my faith journey. And, we always had Sunday meals. I'll never forget, with four boys, you can imagine we were always inviting somebody over. And if somebody came around and said FHB on the potatoes, that means family hold back on the potatoes. But we always had a lot of people coming to church, to Sunday night dinners with us. And during this time, I attended Camp High Life, and Camp High Life was started by Doug Renz and a number of others. But this was the first time that I said, Lord, I want you in my life. I don't accept you as my Savior. And it was such a great feel and a great camp, and it was just so special. To this day, I can still go down to the end of Sam Love Road where the camp used to be and still walk around and still see some of the remnants of that camp. But it was just a very special, special time in my life. Next slide, please. Now, when we talk about priorities of faith, family, and football, I would love to sit here and tell you that I've followed that priority all my life, because I have not. There's times in my life that other things were more important than my faith and than my family and than football. I did swim in high school and ran track. I chose to not show you any pictures of my Speedo because it's not very, that's not very pleasant. But our family was always involved in sports, especially football. All of my brothers played football, but it was something very special to us. And during this time, you go ahead and go to the next slide, please. When I started swimming, guys, when I started swimming, I was 13 years old. And my dad was very wise. I'd broken my arm, played baseball, broke my arm, couldn't play baseball anymore. And the doctor said, you got to sit a year. And my dad, as wise as he was, says, you're not sitting at home. Why don't you try swimming? Guys, I was so bad. I was 13 years old. They put me in the 11, 12-year-old group. And you talking about something humiliating for a child to be stuck down to another group. I got pushed down to 11, 12-year-olds. Well, I did go on and finish that year, qualified for state, and had 2 gold medals. Was very successful at swimming, so swimming took off. And then when I got the scholarship to Georgia, during this time I'm coaching swimming, and let me tell you something, coaching is something else. You know, here in Dalton, in the summertime, we would have 115, 120 kids. You say, how did you do it? I said, that's nothing. It's those 220 parents that I had to deal with. It was my challenge. But I can tell you, some of my favorite parents, Donna, you and Bernie were just some of the greatest friends that I had, and been lifelong friends since then, And so I had offers to go to University of Kentucky. Sorry, Kelly, I didn't make it there. Georgia Southern, Georgia State. And I chose to go to Georgia because I didn't want to be a big fish in a small pond. I wanted to be a minnow in the ocean. And let me tell you something, swimming in the SEC, I was a minnow in the ocean. Next slide, please. So during my coaching times, check out that guy right there, the little head cocked sideways. It looks like Hank, doesn't it? So I got to coach Kelly Scruggs when he was 6 years old. I was assistant coach, and I think that year we had 2 6-year-olds, a 5-year-old, and a 7-year-old, and we won a gold medal at Georgia Parks and Recreation State Swim Meet. But I learned a lot there. And again, I'll go back to faith and family, and I picked up a new family. It was my swim team family. And again, you talk about the number of kids and then the parents that I got to associate with and be with. It was truly, truly very, very humbling for me to be in that position. Next slide, please. And then I got promoted to head coach of the team. And once again, parents like Donna and Bernie and others just were so supportive of me. It was something very special. So I picked up a swimming family. And you're our swimming family. We travel together, and you sit out on a pool deck for 8, 10 hours. You loved it, didn't you, Jennifer? We were some what were the cards we played? Spades. We were the spades playing people. We played many games of spades at swim meets. Next slide. So this is when football started for me. At the University of Georgia, a professor of mine asked me, she said, what are you going to do with your dad when you get out of school? I said, wow, I don't know. Because I'd stopped swimming, but I was training for triathlons. And those of you who knew my daddy, he was not going to be doing a triathlon with me. Daddy, when he was passed, he was 6'3", 275. And I just can imagine him trying to ride a little bicycle with a seat like that on there. But that professor asked me, what are you going to do with your dad? And I said, I don't know. I said, he officiates high school football. I think I'll give it a try. And so graduated from Georgia with a degree in business education. I moved back to start my professional career. Next slide, please. And this is where, moving back to them as a college kid, living with my parents for a while, guess what? On Sunday mornings, we were right back in church because it was just a way of life. And I tell you, my favorite scripture is Romans 8:28. It says, we know that God causes all things to work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. And then from Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare, not for calamity, to give you a future and a hope. And from Proverbs 3:5, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Next slide, please. So football started for me. You see, and again, my priorities were nowhere close where they had to be. Faith was something we did because it was just a way of life and a routine. We did those routines. But as I started getting into football, I actually called my brother David, younger brother Greg, called for a very short period of time. Greg didn't quite have the temperament to be a football official, because it does take a temperament to be a good football official. It was at this time that I met my friend Gary Bingham. And we've been calling football together ever since. He's the only one in the association that's been there longer than I have. How many years, Gary? 44. And tell you, he has been a great friend and great mentor for me. But again, my priorities still were not where they needed to be. Next slide, please. In December 1993, I still have the devotion in my Bible from this, when I proposed to Patty from Matthew 7:7-9. Ask and it shall be given to you. Seek and you shall find. Knock and it shall be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives, and he who seeks finds. And to him who knocks it shall be opened. Well, Patty is the love of my life, and I'm sorry she can't be here today. She's taking care of our granddaughter Marley today. And Patty and I met, people asked when we met, she was 8 years old and I was 15, so I was a swim coach. But I promise you, her parents did not let us start dating until she was 10. You know, so we actually reunited in church, actually in church choir. And it's been history ever since then. She's the, excuse me. Next slide, please. Again, this is the love of my life. I would not be able to call football for 42 years if I didn't have somebody home supporting me. Because I can tell you, it's a lot of travel. And so when I started high school football, while I was in Tennessee, as Tom mentioned, I've got a state championship. It's funny, Kelly is another 2A state championship 25 years ago. But after that, I started getting to college. I joined the South Atlantic Conference. And then a year later, I joined the ACC. And you talk about travel. And so I was leaving. For a couple of years, I was calling high school and college. I'd call a game on Friday night, get in the car, drive to wherever, sleep 4 or 5 hours, get up next morning, drive to where I was going, call a game. But I'd always committed that I'd be home on Sundays to be with my family. Again, that routine of being in church on Sunday. So I drove many long nights coming home from football to be with my family. But again, guys, I did not have my priorities in line. I was chasing that dream. I wanted to be on the field for a D1 game like nobody's business. I called Clemson spring game twice, ACC spring game several times. Calvin Johnson's probably one of my favorite athletes. We got in a little discussion about a catch or no catch, and after the game, we were in the players' dining hall, and he came up and said to me, he said, "Hey, ref, I looked at that film. You're right. That wasn't a touchdown." So I told you it wasn't a touchdown. You just got to listen to me. And so I think about that in those times. But again, my priorities were not in order. Next slide, please. So these are my daughters, Chandler and Mary Turner. This was from a YMCA Indian Princess daddy-daughter dance. Still during this time, I'm chasing that dream. Now, I have to admit, I kind of played my kids a little bit with this. So I was traveling to call these college games. I said, "Look, I'll give you, each one of you, 10% of every check that I get." And after that first check came for the college game, the next day my oldest came in and said, "Daddy, when's your next game?" And so it kind of eased the burden a little bit. But guys, I'm telling you, for these officials, it's a lot of travel and a lot of time commitment. And I was wide open football. In the ACC, I went through 3 supervisors, and by the 3rd supervisor, he chose to do away with the supplemental staff, and so I was no longer calling with the ACC. And Tom mentioned about sabbatical. My sabbatical was my youngest daughter's senior year. Mary Turner played volleyball. Volleyball is a fall sport. And I told her, I said, "Mary Turner, I'm taking sabbatical. I'm not calling a single game this year. I won't miss a volleyball match, a tournament. We're going to have some fun. We're going to celebrate your senior year." Ken and I got to go watch football games together. It's been a long time. When you travel football for 42 years, you don't get to see your home team very much. But we did her senior year. It was one of the best things that I ever did with my child. I love football. I started feeling my priorities started getting in line here. Football is important, but guess what? My family's really important too. And my faith has always been important because it's been a routine. But once again, it was not quite what order I wanted to get. Next slide, please. So this talks about family and football. This is from a golf tournament for football officials up in Tennessee is me and Gary and Dwight Patterson, my dad. It goes back to that family of officials. Again, Gary, I've known Kelly longer than you, but both of you guys are two of my dear friends, and I would not be standing here today as an official if it were not for both of you, and I really do appreciate that. The next slide. We kept going, staying in football, season ticket holders to Georgia. We absolutely love it. Funny story, Mary Turner, the smallest one here, is a few years after this. I think she was like 8. We were at a game. Georgia's playing, and offensive guy jumps off sides, and she says, "Oh my gosh, it's a false start on number 78." And people turn around and looked at her. Referee comes on, false start, 78 offense. And here's this child, and she was just so into football, and she loved football so much. It was just part of our families and part of a way of life. Next slide, please. And this article came out, and Ken, I think this article came out after Daddy had passed. Okay. Daddy always stood at Dalton High games. He stood down by the fence, same spot, after he retired from officiating, and he watched football. So Ken's at the same spot, and Ken's picked up the torch there and carries it for supporting the school, the Catamounts. And that's a big part of our life and a big part of his life. But again, it's all that family, and it was just full of, it was just full of love of the game. You don't do this for the money, I'm telling you. You don't do it for the money. Next slide, please. And so Tom mentioned my family today, Chandler and Colton and Marley and Mary Turner getting married in March. And good gosh, guys, a wedding in the South. Whew, I'm ready for this thing to be over, but I'm excited for it. But I want to mention the rest of my family too. Is, I have a niece, Lexi, and 5 nephews, Ben, Andy, Grayson, William, and Andrew. 4 great nieces, Alice, Ivy, Grace, Addie, and Ella. 1 great nephew, Henry, and 1 beautiful little granddaughter, Marley. But I started thinking about family, and it's more than that. It's the Lumpkins, it's the Smiths, it's the Burns, it's the Parks, it's the Olivers, Rattermans, Corneliusons, Chandlers, and Kinnemans, and soon to be Collins. And our family is so big, but they're part of our family as always. Next slide, please. And this is little Marley. There's nothing like it in the world. Kelly and I've got to share grandchildren because I think Ivy turns 2. Is a 2-year-old 2 now? Today? It's her birthday? Yeah. So we've got to share that together about our grandchildren. Next slide. And so, guys, this is our championship crew from this year. And it's very interesting because, people don't realize how much time we spent together. So as a crew, we worked 7 games together at the end of the season, going through the playoffs. Well, you think about it, in a season we call 18 games. If you make it to the finals, 18 games. Average game has about 125, 130 plays. That's over 2,200 plays in a season. We make mistakes. I'm telling you, we make mistakes, and it happens. But these guys right here, between all of these guys here, the average age of this crew is 18.86. So we have been around for a while. So I see, we okay? Everything okay? Oh, good. That's a blessing. I know that's okay. I saw the look on your face, and I saw the look on my face. I said, this is not good. You're welcome to stay and hang out. Thank you. Okay, adversity. But guys, this is a great group of guys. I want you to go to the next slide, please, because this next slide, this is of Kelly's championship crew. This was Kelly's 3rd state championship, 4th state championship. So, guys, you got a great one here in the audience right here. And I'm going to tell you this about Kelly. I'm going to do everything I can for him to get a state championship as a white hat. We talk every Friday about during football season. He would be the only official I've ever known to call state championships from 3 different positions. 3 different positions. It's pretty awesome. But I show you these pictures because it's very rare. There are actually 28 football officials associations in the state of Georgia. Our association put 2 in the finals. There's only 8 slots. And it's very rare. It's never happened to our association. We've had state championship crews before, but this was something very special for our association. Next slide, please. I show you this picture here. That's your buddy Marcus Blaylock. Marcus is my umpire. And we have these routines about games as we make the circle around the field after we do all of our talks with the coaches. And that look on Marcus's face was when we walked up and saw Christian Brooks standing there in the stands, and Brooks has got a smile from ear to ear, and Marcus has got a smile from ear to ear. And I'm telling you, that was one of the most special moments for me during this game, being there. The second one was Kelly and Bernie taking pictures with each other, Bernie's clock operator and Kelly's crew, and having those two together, and how much I miss my father during football, because he taught so much about football. But that right there, seeing Brooks smile at Marcus, just it overshadows everything that I got to experience during that game. Next slide, please. So why faith, family, and football? I told you the slogan came from Jack Childress, but why? Next slide, please. It's for the love of our Savior. You know, he died for my sins. You know, and then for family, we love at all times. And you imagine 4 boys, do we fight? You betcha. Do we fight still? You betcha. You know, it's just, it's how we grew up, and but we do love at all times. And for Proverbs 17:17, a friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. 1 Peter 4:8, and above all things, have fervent love for one another, for love will cover a multitude of sins. And for football guys, it was just for the love of the game. And I'll remind you, it's a game played by kids. And we get so excited about it and who wins, who loses, but it is played by kids. Next slide, please. So why all this is love? Love is mentioned in the Bible in the King James Version 310 times. In the newer versions, over 600 times, the word love is mentioned. From John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. And from 1 Corinthians 13:4, love suffers long and is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not parade itself. And from 1 John 4:8, he who does not love does not know God, for God is love. And from Hebrews 13:1, let brotherly love continue. So for me personally, our faith, family, and football story is just all about love. Loving my Lord, loving my family through all of its adversity we go through. And I do love this game of football. But guys, once again, Mike, thank you for inviting me. I'm humbled and honored to be here. It was a challenge for me today, and thank you for the prayer. I did the prayer earlier because I needed that prayer. It's a privilege to be here, up here and talk to you, because I'd only been in this church before for funerals. And that was concerning for me. So I came and did a drive-through. And Amy, thanks for hanging out with me and letting me do my walkthrough. I appreciate it. But with that, guys, thank you very much, and I wish you the very best. Touch that.